I mean, I feel like the way you understand misogyny again is somehow the way the left uses the word racism. It seems to always incorporate some systemic component to it. So I would definitely say that there is misogynistic tendencies within incel forums.
Well, there may be, but that's the old definition of. Sorry, I hear me all right. That's the old definition. The old definition that everybody still adheres to is that a small minority of people have got an antipathy towards the opposite sex, both male and female, typically through a history of a succession of failed romances or some other semi-objective reason why they might have a downer on the opposite sex. Everybody accepts that happens, and there are always those people around. The definition in common usage now, the elite, the received opinion of it, is a totally different phenomenon which doesn't exist. The idea that there's a systematic, generic, implicit bias of all males towards all females. It's a complete truth inversion. There is a systemic implicit bias by everyone, males and females included, towards males generically, unless males actually show there's some reason why you should let them off that, i.e. if they're high status. That's basically, and the science on that is absolutely rock solid.
Wait, before you go there, so I'm correct in my assumption that your definition of misogyny or misandry is incorporating a systemic part.
That's how it's currently defined, but it's not how it's understood by ordinary people. Ordinary people understand what is a reality, that a very small proportion of people, both men and women. It's not clear whether men or women are in the majority on this.
No,
but through failed romances, have a downer, not a heavy one necessarily, but a bit of a down on the opposite sex. That's what everybody understands. That's the reality. The current definition, the ideological one by the authorities, is complete, not only nonsense, it's a complete truth inversion. Because people do have a downer on males, implicitly, generically.
We have to get a little bit more abstract in order for me to grasp this. So when I say there is no racism in Germany, or when I say there is no misogyny in Germany, what I mean is there is no people acting misogynist or racist towards other people. So I'm talking about the act of one person being misogynistic or racist or misandristic. What do you say?
Misandric.
Yeah. Against.
Of course. Yeah, of course, there's going to be individuals. So that way.
Yeah, but when you say misogyny, then you mean a systemic misogyny, right?
Yeah, I'm meaning both. I'm distinguishing. There's two usages. One, the common usage, which reflects reality, and the usage by the authorities and institutions, which doesn't reflect reality and is actual complete truth inversion.
So, which one is your definition?
Neither of them are mine. I'm talking
the one
about
you think is correct.
The common usage that which should have the corresponding misandric, but isn't, which is just people recognizing that a minority, and that will include some incels, obviously, a minority of individuals, they could be male or female, have an antipathy towards the other sex through their life experience, or that's what's assumed. Obviously, we don't really know. But this is a small minority of people. That is not how the word's bandied about now. People have forgotten that usage. People use it around ordinary people where I live, use it that way. But in all media discourse, the meaning is completely different. It's the ideological one, and it's complete nonsense. And all the science is completely rock solid, showing not only that there's no such thing as misogyny, but misandry is ubiquitous and real.
Do you think
more by women than by men?
Do you think that misogyny or misandry has to be a feeling of hate? Couldn't it? I mean, yeah,
it can be quite mild. It's usually mild.
I mean, the way I see it, racism, misogyny, misandry, doesn't matter what it is. It is not loaded by negative or positive feelings. It's neutral to a certain extent. I mean,
I think
just
that's right. That's particularly true of racism. If you look at a lot of research on racism now, but I've got a forthcoming paper on this showing that critical social justice theory is completely wrong in that sex is salient, race is almost non-salient, and the sex salience is in the wrong direction anyway compared to what the feminists assume. So CRT is completely backwards. Race is usually not salient at all, or very mildly. There's lots of experiments. You know, the minimal groups condition, psychology experiments. They find out that if you set up minimal groups, the minimal trigger to get people to think of themselves as belonging to an in-group rather than an out-group. You could do that using arbitrary in-group markers. And some of those actually are stronger than using race to do that. That's how non-salient race in most contexts is. So the idea that racism is a problem is a non-starter.
wait, but
Obviously,
you,
it's a problem
again,
in somewhere like the
you
States.
go, Steve. You make me crazy. Again, you go.
Problem in the States.
You're not able to stick with the abstract concept that I'm offering you, and I'm asking you, and immediately you jump to leftism and how it's wrong. What I'm just saying
No,
is,
I'm nowhere in leftism there. I'm just pointing out that the science of racism it's barely salient in most contexts. Obviously, there are exceptions, like in America, because the history of blacks and slavery. There's difference there. I dare say there's some differences in Germany because of the history of the Jews. So, but generally speaking, race is not salient psychologically to most people to make them do any. I mean, you put it right that that it's nearer neutral than having any
so
sort of
neutral in the
evoking
sense
any
of
great feelings.
neutral in the sense of there can be positive racism and negative racism. So if
Yes.
so, that's what makes it neutral. And I think there can be. I'm not sure if there can be positive yeah, actually I'm pretty sure positive sexism and negative sexism. And I feel like misogyny okay, misogyny is it already the negative sexism? Is it always the negative sexism?
No, it's being conflated with sex because sexism now, again, as defined, is circular and it's become a nonsense.
Your definition.
Sexism now is no. This is general in
No,
science.
I want to know I
In,
don't want to hear about the general definition that is nonsense. I want to hear your definition.
well, there's no such thing as my definition.
What do you think
Sexism
is
is
a
a word.
meaningful what do you think is a meaningful definition for sexism? Is
There is a
is the no, sorry, for misogyny, is negative sexism against women the definition of misogyny?
No, it's more complicated than that because the current usage of sexism is completely circular. It's meaningless.
I don't want to know the
It's
current
completely meaningless.
I don't care about that.
Well, you can't come up with your own isolated definition out of context to usage. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you think you okay? You think that the current definition of sexism is useless and tautological, yes, right? So
yeah,
definition being tautological is basically a definition not existing. So basically, you are saying to me that you don't know what sexism means. When I say to you, when I utter the word sexism to you, you don't know what that means because you're stuck to because you've been brainwashed by the left to believe a tautological definition. Therefore, you cannot engage with the word sexism. Are you really telling me that? That you've forgotten what sexism means? You don't know what sexism means? Is that what you're telling me?
It's a bollocks term. It's a bollocks term in the first place.
It's amazing.
And it's made completely circular. So it's lost any meaning in discourse.
You are being circular right now. You are being circular because you're referencing the definition of the left, which apparently is circular, but in comparison to what? In comparison, didn't that word exist before that?
Yeah, but it's hegemonic. It's everywhere.
Has it been invented by the left? Does it? You don't.
You can't separate. You can't talk about sexism outside the context in which it's ubiquitously discussed.
Okay, how
doesn't
would
make any
you
sense to do that.
how would you what would be a good word? I have a question. What would be a good word for discrimination based on sex? If I say I don't want any men in here, and you, because you are a man, because you have a penis, you are not allowed in here. What would you call that?
Discrimination against men.
Okay, discrimination
Because,
against men. And if you want to have a
because you
category,
can't.
and it's based on sex, right? So that's why we call it sexism. Is there any problem with that? Do you need the left for that? Is there?
No, there is a problem with that, because by calling it what it is at face value, discrimination against men, you're not impeaching a motive or a feeling. You can't judge from somebody stating something like that what their motivation for making that statement is, and to call it anything else is
We just
assuming
said that we don't
when
need
you've got no right to.
we just both agreed, me and you, we both agreed that we don't need the motivation behind it because it's neutral. It could be positive, it could be negative. I mean, just the fact that you saying, yes, I agree, sexism is neutral, just that already proves that you know what sexism is. Otherwise, how would you?
I'm saying
how would you say that it's neutral if it's a tautological, nothing meaning blob of a word?
Because it doesn't make any sense to use the term, because it's been used so much in ways that don't make sense. It's crazy.
But you know what it means, right?
So just avoid using the word.
So do you know what it means?
Avoid using it.
Do you know what it means?
Oh, yeah, I was very
so
keen to.
Why did you say that you don't know what it means?
Normally used, the way that it's used now is, as I say, is a complete tautology. It doesn't make any sense. The official definition of sexism now is anything. You don't let me finish. The official in all institutions right now is sexism is anything which imputes anything to somebody by virtue of their sex. It's a totally meaningless notion.
Do you know why we were talking about this? Do you remember?
Yeah, you've lost me. I'm getting tired. I'm gonna have to have a coffee.
I agree. Yeah, maybe we should call it a stream.
Yeah.
Thanks again
for another day. But yeah, read the misogyny paper. The science is amazing on this. There's quite a lot of it, and it's absolutely rock solid. There's misogyny is currently defined does not exist. Misandry, on the other hand, is everywhere, and that's nothing to do with its normal usage.
I mean, it's not really the reason why it's not really a topic that interests me that much. It only tangentially interests me to the extent where it's about incels, since that's a common thing that the incel community is being criticized
it's
for.
Different with incels. The ordinary person's usage of the word misogyny could well apply to certain incels.
Yes,
a minority of them, I would imagine. I would imagine not a majority, but a minority. I thought absolutely, it might well apply to.
Yeah,
because the reason they're incel, presumably, is because of their life experience. That's exactly the understanding that most people have of the word misogyny.
I mean,
they also understand misandry, but they don't use the term misandry to describe the same thing in the direction.
You have misogyny. You have misogyny on two levels in incel communities, in my opinion. One level is that they say there is a hatred and anger towards women for being for choosing mates based on to their, from their perspective, they're angry. A lot of them are angry at women for choosing just based on physical traits and not for character.
That's not really hatred. Is that really misogyny, though?
Anger. Let's call it anger against women.
Yeah, I think anger is a better description, isn't it?
Yes, and that's one. And then when you say stuff like
frustration.
I mean when you say stuff like
situation.
When you say stuff like women are just selecting based on physical attributes and are basically looking for evil, good-looking guys. You know, that's, to me, that's, if I would say the same thing about any other group, I feel like that will be a discriminating statement.
But then again, there's quite an element of truth to it. So really, it's an expression of frustration at their situation, which happens to be vis-a-vis their interactions or lack of them with women. Is that really best categorized as hatred of women, or is it best categorized as deep frustration with their own
I
situation?
mean,
It's
misogyny.
really impeding. I mean, in as much as they're at least partially correct in what they're saying. If it's correct, you can't really say that that's not an irrational belief. So it's not, can't really be hatred unless it was a irrational belief, can it? Really?
Yeah, I just looked it up. It actually means, yeah, hatred. So hatred must be part of it. I mean, yeah, I have my. I'm not sure if hatred is the correct word. I mean, what could be to hatred to a certain extent. Yeah,
I
you
mean,
would
you could
argue
argue
that you
there's an
can't
element
hate.
of blame.
Yeah, blame and anger, and yeah, I don't see why it can't be hatred as well.
So,
I
so,
mean, I'm sure many people
so,
feel hatred to many women feel hatred towards men, and
well, they clearly do. I think. I think misandry. Again, would you say all misandry is hatred? Well, no. Most of it's uh, you could say it's antipathy, but there's a difference between antipathy and hatred.
yeah, or anger.
Hatred's
It's
quite a
also
strong word, isn't it?
frustration and anger. I mean, yeah, I woman complaining about men is mostly frustration, right?
Well, no, I think it's mostly deep-seated biology to do with controlling male sexual access. You know, the classic instance is attitudes of men who pay for sex.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing intrinsically problematic. It's females. Prostitution is the female exploitation of universal male desire for partners in number for money. If that was the other way around, there'd be no hesitation saying that the man's uh, the abuser here. But because it's the other
I'm
way
not.
around, we don't see it.
Yeah, I don't agree.
So that's a classic instance of misandry, which is more than just antipathy. It's an attempt to control male sexual access, and because that's such a strong biological drive, I think it does go beyond antipathy, and is more negative than that. So it's a problem. It's not going away. I don't think there's anything you can really do about it. But because it's ironic, because actually prostitution is actually quite a good social service, because it acts as a safety valve for an awful lot of. I think it saves an awful lot of marriages, because you've got from a male point of view, if you've got a fairly sexless marriage, you can have an affair, which of course is dangerous. It's much more problematic for the woman, because women don't fear sexual infidelity from the male partners. They feel emotional infidelity such that it signals possible desertion. What women don't want is a guy to, because the guy can't import a foreign body into a relationship as a woman could. So prostitution actually is quite a positive social service looked at in the round. So it takes the pressure off a lot of marriages that otherwise might blow apart. So it's much maligned, but nowadays, of course, it's the male parties that are always the malign ones, rather than at one time it used to be the women feeling annoyed at the women practitioners. Now everybody seems to be ganging up on the male parties. So I can talk about that because I used to use what could you call them, sex workers myself for quite a long time. So I wasn't in relationships, so it seemed to make a sense. If I was in a relationship, it might have even made sense then. I don't know. I've not been in that situation using both, but and most of the women most of the women are great because they're in the industry because they like men and they like sex. Obviously, a significant minority don't, so they're just in it for the money and try to charge as much as they can for delivering as little as they can, and they're a nightmare. And that's why you have prostitution forums, so that guys relate to these women. So that's the problem. That's where but there's a lot of violence there's much more violence from sex workers to clients than the way around.
I'm not
That's
sure
another
about
great
that.
misconception.
I'm not sure
Well, I
about
know
that.
that for a fact.
But I think that's a That's actually a really interesting topic that I would like to explore as well, but I think that's a really big one as well. And also,
Which is a big one.
yeah, but to get
There's
back
so many
to
topics of his sex.
yeah, to get back to what you said before. So you are basically saying there is no systemic misogyny in society. There is systemic
None at all, no.
misandry in society,
Yeah.
right? But you would agree that there is. I mean, wouldn't you agree that saying that, to me, discrimination is the refutal of accepting the individuality of a person and instead using their group to determine how to engage with that person or what to think about that person or what to.
No, I don't agree with that. Because I think that's just basic human nature rule of thumb.
It can be
Everyone
human
uses.
nature rule of thumb, but it
You
can
can't.
be.
You can't.
I'm
It
not
can.
saying
Yes,
it's
it can
not.
be, but
I'm not saying
but
it's not. I'm not saying it's not
the way
nature.
the way we get through life is through rule of thumb. And if you're going to say
I'm not
every
saying
use
we
of rule
don't.
of thumb is some form of discrimination, then we're in trouble.
That's not not in contradiction to anything I've said. Do you disagree with my definition of discrimination?
I think discrimination is a loaded word, particularly in the current context.
Wait, can you say yes or
And
no?
I'm just saying it's a loaded, it's too loaded the word. And if you're going to use that in all instances of rule of thumb, I think that's a mistake. I think that's vilifying people really for just
I'm not
ordinary
vilifying. I'm
human
just.
behavior.
I mean, if I say I'm going to talk to, I don't know, probably I don't know. It's just some. I'm talking to a racist probably because you're white. Okay, if that's my presumption of you, that's just racist. That's discrimination based on race, right? So, and in the
Yeah,
same way,
but most people are not like that, are they?
I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about the definition. Do you agree
We
with my
use rule of thumbs all the time.
before we can even talk about the top? That's a big issue I have with when we talk with each other. I'm trying to get to the concrete thing, but before I can get there, I have to agree with you on the definition, right? So we disagree on the matter of on the facts of the matter, and then I'm trying to find out why we disagree, and I'm trying to explore your definition and my definition. So my definition of discrimination is my definition of discrimination is refuting your individuality. I am refuting your individuality. You, Steve Moxon, a person, researcher, and I'm saying I have a white person in front of me, and that white person is probably racist. That in and of itself is racist, right?
That would be, yeah. But for example, if I remark that, oh well, we know from the research that most women, if they had a choice, would either not going to work at all or only part time, and they would rather be, even if they haven't got children, they'd rather be homemakers. That is just a truth about women as a group.
That's a
Doesn't
statistic,
mean that
yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
that is not discrimination. That's a rule of thumb. So from that you can assume that any individual woman you meet is more liable to be in that camp than to be a career woman. Career women are only 10 to 15% tops of all women, so they're exceptions rather than the norm.
Okay.
Now, so it's not discriminatory to
So
actually view women in that
do you
way.
see how when you define it that way, it only becomes discrimination when you're wrong about the statistic?
Well, if you are wrong about the statistic,
Only then it becomes
then you have
discrimination from your.
well, then you'd have to ask, well, why is it you've got that so wrong? Because your rule of thumb is pretty reliable mostly. Ordinary people are not dumb, and they're not prejudiced. That the rules of thumb they use are fairly accurate. They're not
If I
always
say
sound, but they usually are.
if I would have a statistic that tells me that 80% of white people are racist, would that mean would that make yeah? Are you able to engage in hypotheticals? This is a question I have. If I have a statistic that tells me that 80% of white people are racist or 51% of white people are racist, and then I meet you and I'm like, this guy's Steve Moxon, he's a racist. Wouldn't that be racist?
It would, because it's not a rule of thumb you'd ever arrive at through normal social interaction.
Yeah, so you're saying that
you got to ask yourself, what is the reason somebody's got this irrational
because I have the statistic in my hypothetical. I have a statistic that says
the statistics bollocks. Everybody knows that statistics bollocks.
Can you engage? Do you know what a hypothetical is?
Yeah, no, but you can't go through
what's
life
a hypothetical
and not know that bollocks.
What's a hypothetical?
I'm not.
I feel like you don't know what a hypothetical is.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's all I'm saying is that if anyone did that, that's not how normal people behave. You wouldn't take what to an ordinary person obviously is a bollock statistic and think there's any truth to it and act on it as that. So you've then got to ask yourself, why is somebody acting on that and behaving in that way? And that suggests that there actually might be something wrong in their attitude.
Do you know what a hypothetical is?
I know.
Do you know that?
Okay,
do you realize that it's really hard for me to believe that you know what a hypothetical is if after me saying that's a hypothetical, you say that that's bollocks? It's really hard for me to believe that you know what a hypothetical is if after me stating multiple times it's a hypothetical, you tell me, yeah, but it's bollocks. It's a hypothetical.
I'm not accusing you.
The statistic doesn't have to be bollocks. No, I know. You're saying the statistic is bollocks.
That's right.
Yeah, so, but it's a hypothetical. In that hypothetical, the statistic is true. It's not bollocks. No, in the hypothetical, it is true.
No.
But if you know what a hypothetical is, then you can't say it's bollocks.
Hang on. I can. I'll explain why. It doesn't matter whether it's hypothetical. That is a hypothetical situation. Any ordinary person hearing that statistic would know it does not fit with their common experience. If they nevertheless use that statistic as part of rule of thumb, then you've got to ask. Then anybody in response to that would think, well, there's something wrong with this person who thinks that. Right?
Okay, I somehow have to convince you without pinning you down to strict definitions and without being able to use hypotheticals. I see. So then I make it easy for you. Easy for you. Would it be racist?
You're not understanding.
No, wait. No, I'm going to make it really easy for you. Okay? No, you are not understanding. I'm going to make it really easy for you, okay? So Turkish people, they steal, right? They're more criminal than white people, right? In Europe. That's not bollocks, right?
I've no idea about statistics.
I'm pretty sure that immigrants have a are higher in crime.
I think it's true of some immigrants and not others. I mean, in England, for example, street crime, that is very heavily disproportionately Black Afro-Caribbean, not Black African, but Black Afro-Caribbean. And so the arrest statistics, despite they're only a tiny percentage, is quite high, the arrest statistics, because they are responsible for a lot. So that's a fairly firm stat. You can't then go and say, well, all migrant groups in England are disproportionately criminal.
I'm not saying that.
True. For a start,
I'm saying
Indians we know are less than whites.
Okay, I'm saying that if then you meet me and then you make an assumption about me being a criminal, that would be racist. You assuming that I am a criminal because statistically it's more likely, that would be denying me my individual.
But hang on, that's an extreme situation. You'd have to be.
I'm not saying
pretty crazy.
No, can you please tell me? Can you just please tell me if you agree or not? That would be racist. So that we have an understanding of what discrimination is. Would you agree that
if in a face-to-face situation, you're acting individually one-to-one on a representative of a group and assuming without any qualification that person, that obviously is wrong.
Yes. Okay. Great. And great. One second. We have to. I'm at a really great place right now. And now that's what's happening, in my opinion, in incel forums against women. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So that's why I'm saying that I think that there is some misogyny happening in incel forums and by incels.
I don't doubt I don't doubt
Yes.
that at least some incels feel that way. Yes.
So in that sense, I would say it's misogynistic, or it's,
Yeah.
but
Hang on.
yeah.
Hang on. You're conflating something here. I mean, it's quite an extreme thing to meet someone of a different race and because of some stat, assume he represents that stat, and not the uh, because the stat of criminality, right? Even in a particularly criminally minded, if you want to put it that way, subsection of the population, you're still only talking of, say, small percentage of individuals. So if you're automatically assuming all individuals, despite only being a small percentage in the first place, I mean, that is really horrific, right? That is totally different to what's going on in incel groups, because if they're saying, well, this is standardly how women behave, and largely they're sort of right. In
To me,
that's a totally different kettle of
yeah,
fish.
you keep saying that, you keep alluring to the amount of correctness, the percentile in statistics, or the truth of the statistic being the factor that determines whether it's racist or not, or whether it's discriminatory or not. What I'm saying is, even if
has
it's
to be,
even
this is how normal people are. If you no, just let me finish.
But I was saying
For
something.
example, no, but you're not representing me, Wally. If
No,
a
you're
group of
saying it
people,
has to be. So I'm representing you perfectly. If you say it has, if I say your position and then you say it has to be, I'm representing you perfectly.
no, you're not listening to what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I am.
Is what would be raised? So if I met you well, I didn't know where you were from, but you told me you're Turkish, and I'd read a statistic somewhere that disproportionately Turks are responsible for street crime in Germany more than is average, or more than the whites are. Right. Well, first of all, it'd be grossly wrong for me to assume that you're part of that, because the percentage is probably quite tiny, even if there were. We might be talking in the low teens of percent. So best part of 90% of your group wouldn't fit in that. So that would be clearly wrong. Now, it's totally different kettle of fish if there's a group of people that something about the lifestyle, which is, say, 60-70% of them are like that, and a minority aren't. And assuming by a rule of thumb basis that it's safe to assume, you can ask to check, but your initial a priori assumption is that they're part of that 67%. Now, that I don't think is wrong. That's rule of thumb. That makes sense. They're totally different
You
things.
keep
And
equating.
with the incels and women.
Wait. You keep equating racism with wrong. I'm not saying if it's wrong or not. I'm saying it's about being racist or not. That's two completely different things. You can be racist and you can be right to be racist. You can.
Well,
Yes, we just said. We
need to continue. I need to get a coffee.
Sure.
And have a lie down.
Sure.
And we need to maybe continue this conversation another
Sounds
time, or
good.
another forum or something.
Sounds good.
Because I'm a bit knackered.